Hi, my name is Kaylin Felmuth, and I'm a Program Associate with the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust. Today, I'm going to be walking you through a guide to state revolving fund financing. An overview of the trust. The Massachusetts Clean Water Trust was established in 1989 to finance projects to improve water quality, protect the environment, and protect public health in the Commonwealth through the provision of low-cost capital financing to cities, towns, and other eligible entities, such as utility districts. Loans are funded by annual grants from the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, as well as state match funds. The Trust and MassDEP work in tandem to operate the Clean Water and Drinking Water SRF programs to help communities comply with the Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water Acts. The scope of this work has been far-reaching. To date, the Trust has financed approximately $8.25 billion in loans for nearly 300 communities, serving 97% of the Commonwealth's population. Each year, MassDEP develops the Intended Use Plans, or IUPs, committing funding to projects throughout the state for both clean water and drinking water SRFs. In 2023, clean water funding totals at over $900 million and includes the following project types. This year, drinking water funding totals at over $430 million for projects including the project types listed below. This map shows where construction projects on the 2023 Intended Use Plan are taking place across the state. The key at the bottom of this slide gives a sense of the types of projects. On this slide, you'll see a breakdown of projects we just showed you on the map, broken down by region. On this year's IUP, there are 61 clean water construction projects, totaling just under $880 million, and 50 drinking water construction projects, totaling just over $380 million. Next, we'll discuss the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as BILL. President Biden signed into law the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021, also known as BILL, which provides an estimated $934.7 million to Massachusetts in funding for clean water and drinking water state revolving funds from 2022 through 2026. This funding is in addition to the annual SRF capitalization grants. Funding is available to the SRFs in grant categories. For both the clean water and drinking water supplemental grants, funds are available for all eligible projects, and 49% of the grant must be given away as loan forgiveness to disadvantaged communities. Likewise, for both the clean water and drinking water emerging contaminants grants, funds focus specifically on emerging contaminants such as PFAS. 100% of the grant must be given away as loan forgiveness, and at least 25% of the grants must be directed to disadvantaged communities. For the lead service line replacement grant under the Drinking Water SRF, funds will go towards identifying, planning, and removing lead service lines, and 49% of the grant must be given away as loan forgiveness to disadvantaged communities. It's important to note that due to the way bill language is written, we're not able to provide exact forgiveness percentages at this time, as we normally would with disadvantaged community loan forgiveness. We'll provide additional updates as they become available. Between 2022 and 2026, we are expected to receive and allocate over $934 million in bill grant funds between the 5 grant categories. It's important to note that there was a recent change and the allotment for the Drinking Water LIT grant has been halved. The 2022 and 2023 grant amounts are final. However, the Trust and MassDEP are working with the EPA to hopefully increase the grant amount in future years. But for now, the numbers are reflected in this chart. Next, let's discuss borrowing through the trust. There are a number of advantages to borrowing through the trust. We offer fixed, low-interest rates that are established by law and offer a stable planning tool for communities. Loans with a 20-year term will have an interest rate of 2%. Loans with a term over 20 years will generally have an interest rate of 2.4%, and certain projects qualify for reduced or 0% interest. We also offer interim loans, or construction loans, which come with no fees or interest charged and allow for one-stop financing through the trust. We have flexible repayment terms with financing up to 30 years. And finally, we have a number of subsidy and grant programs, which are targeted to assist communities with priority issues affecting water infrastructure in the Commonwealth, which I'll discuss further in the next slides. The Asset Management Planning, or AMP grant program, provides grants up to 60% of project costs or $150,000, whichever is less, to assist communities with completing or updating asset management plans to ensure the operational integrity of the water utility. This is a great way to evaluate your community's assets to determine operational and maintenance needs and to develop a comprehensive plan for the future. Next, we have the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Trust Fund, which was created to help communities on Cape Cod by using revenues from tourism to provide additional loan forgiveness for qualifying projects, as approved by the CCI WPF Board. We also have the Housing Choice Loan Program. The Housing Choice Initiative rewards municipalities that are producing new housing and have adopted best practices to promote sustainable housing development. Communities that have achieved the Housing Choice designation under the initiative will be eligible for an interest rate reduction up to 50 basis points below the standard market rate of 2% offered by the trust. However, it's important to note here that we do not offer negative interest rates. We also have the 0% Nutrient Enrichment Reduction Loan Program. Nutrient enrichment is one of America's most widespread, costly, and challenging environmental problems, and is caused by excess nitrogen and phosphorus in water bodies. This can cause harmful algal blooms that degrade water quality, kill wildlife, and produce elevated toxins and bacterial growth. This program reduces the interest for CWSRF loans that are primarily intended to remediate or prevent nutrient enrichment of a surface water body or water supply to prevent environmental degradation of the surrounding water bodies. We also have 0% interest PFAS remediation loans. PFAS are a family of chemicals that are classified as emerging contaminants and are known to cause health issues when found in drinking water. The Trust is proud to provide financial incentives to treat known PFAS contamination. Projects that have the purpose of reducing PFAS in water below the established maximum contamination level of 20 parts per trillion are eligible for 0% interest loans. We recently created the Lead Service Line Planning Grant Program with $20 million in trust-allocated grant funds to assist public water suppliers with completing planning projects for LSL inventories, as well as developing LSL replacement plans for compliance with the lead and copper rule revisions. Cost is often one of the main barriers to proactive LSL replacement. This grant can assist communities in completing exploratory and planning activities. And finally, we have our Income-Based Community Septic Management Program, or CSMP loans, which are particularly helpful for communities without traditional sewer infrastructure. The Trust is now offering 0% interest CSMP loans to communities that provide reduced interest rate loans to homeowners based on their annual income as compared to the area median income. Replacing these septic systems protects public health by preventing potentially harmful pathogenic organisms from entering the environment. Additional information on all the programs I've discussed can be found on the Trust's website. For additional information on eligibility and applying, please reach out to MassDEP, whose contact information will be provided at the end of this presentation. In addition to these programs, the Trust offers an additional subsidy to disadvantaged communities in the form of loan forgiveness that reduces the principal amount of the loan. This is determined by an annual affordability calculation which ranks communities into affordability tiers, not ranked Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. From there, a fixed percentage of forgiveness is provided to communities based on their tier and program, clean water or drinking water. The percentages shown below are for the 2023 IUP and may be different in the future. You can visit our website, linked here, to see which tier your community falls under for the 2023 IUP. This map shows disadvantaged communities on the 2023 IUP by tier across the state. Communities in white are non-tiered, while communities in shades of green fall under tiers 1 through 3. We feel this approach is comprehensive and distributes loan forgiveness across the Commonwealth, serving a wide range of communities. The Trust and MassDEP are two agencies working together to provide one service. The Trust administers financial aspects, including sending and receiving loan commitment package documents, as well as financing and grant agreement package documents, processing interim loan documents, final payment requisition approval and dispersing proceeds, and loan repayment or permanent financing. MassDEP administers the programmatic aspects, including administering the annual SRF solicitation and project selections, developing the IUP project lists, receiving and approving loan and grant applications, overseeing project bidding and awarding, issuing final project approvals, processing and approving payment requisitions, and project closeout. Next, let's discuss the ins and outs of the SRF loan process. The SRF financing process can take up to 2 years depending on the community and project, from the initial project proposal to funds being dispersed. MassDEP's staff assists the community from application submission to project completion, with steps from start to finish mapped out here. We'll be going over the details of these steps in the following slides. A major component of the SRF process is readiness to proceed, meaning that a community is ready to move through the SRF process. There are some important deadlines to note here. For 2023 IUP projects, the most eminent deadline is the vote for local authorization, which is needed by June 30th, 2023. I'll touch on this in further detail in the next slide. Communities on published IUPs must adhere to the application schedule. A list of deadlines can be found at the end of this presentation. There's some flexibility, but a consistent set of deadlines are applied. We encourage communities to be proactive and work in advance of deadlines to ensure they're met. As I mentioned in the last slide, the deadline for local authorization for 2023 IUP projects is June 30th, 2023. The local authorization is a community vote at town meeting or equivalent with an authorization to borrow debt. The borrowed debt is a general obligation pledged as security. Authorization needs to account for factors including eligible and ineligible costs, construction management fees and a 10% contingency, police details, and inflation. Generally, it's better to overestimate than underestimate costs to avoid having to go back to town meeting because bids came in higher than expected. The local authorization is required for the loan application. The next step in the process is the loan application. Once on the IUP, a community must complete the application for financial assistance. This is due to MassDEP on or before October 13th, 2023. For construction projects, the loan application includes plans and specifications, local debt authorization, required SRF documentation, construction schedules, and permits for construction. For planning projects, this includes scope of services or plans of study, local debt authorization, and required SRF documentation. Once the loan application package has been submitted, MassDEP will issue a Project Approval Certificate, or PAC, which will be done by December 29, 2023. If for any reason requirements are not met by that date, the PAC will be restricted. Once all PAC requirements have been met, the Board of Trustees will vote on a loan commitment. After the Board of Trustees approves a loan commitment, the Trust will send a loan commitment package with commitment information and conditions outlined, as well as instructions on obtaining a green light letter from local bond counsel and information on completing the loan questionnaire. The loan questionnaire ensures the Trust is complying with laws and regulations for issuing tax-exempt bonds, collects the contact information for communities, selects preliminary loan terms and amortization, and other relevant financial information, like credit rating, sources of repayment, and so on. The green light letter is issued by a local bond counsel and submitted to the Trust, and certifies that the local vote to authorize is legal. It's important to note that loan proceeds cannot finance local bond counsel costs. The next phase is project bidding and authorization to award. For loan forgiveness eligible projects and amounts, the first executed construction contract must be awarded by June 30th of 2024. It's important to note that this is a hard deadline. Construction projects financed through the SRF are owned and managed by the community, and MassDEP ensures that the project and procurement processes adhere to SRF requirements. MassDEP will give the community permission to advertise for bidding to begin, and then bidding occurs once the Board of Trustees approves a PAC. From there, MassDEP will review the procurement document and identify any ineligible costs. Upon receiving acceptable bids, MassDEP's Division of Fiscal Management reviews and approves disadvantaged business enterprise participation. The authorization to award is issued upon review and approval of bids. And the Project Regulatory Agreement, or PRA amount, for Board of Trustees vote is based on the construction and services contracts, plus a 5% contingency. Another important thing that we want to note is that as of May 11th, 2023, a physical sign is required for all clean water and drinking water construction projects. EPA will begin tracking compliance with the signage requirement as soon as a loan is approved, and MassDEP will verify that the signage is in place and meets specifications when visiting construction sites. Additional information on bill signage can be found at the following links. To provide a brief overview of the Build America, Buy America Act, also known as BABA, bill expands domestic sourcing requirements for all CWSRF treatment works construction projects and DWSRF construction projects. These requirements apply for all steel, iron, manufactured products, non-ferrous metals, plastic and polymer-based products, glass, lumber, and drywall. Additional information on guidance can be found at the link below. It's good to note that there are some exceptions. Communities can request and obtain a waiver from the EPA. Certain projects qualify for a general applicability waiver, and MassDEP can review and notify a community in writing if BABA requirements do not apply to a project. Another thing to note is that BABA is a new requirement, so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. The next step of the process is the issuance of a Project Regulatory Agreement, or PRA, which is usually issued at the same time as the authorization to award, and states that the community agrees to follow the terms and conditions laid out by MassDEP. The PRA details the scope of the project, outlines the project timeline, lists estimated disbursements, and lists eligible and ineligible costs. Once the Board of Trustees approves the Project Regulatory Agreement, or PRA, and the trust has received a greenlight letter and completed loan questionnaire, the trust will send a financing agreement package, which includes the financing agreement, PRA, and instructions. The financing agreement states that the community agrees to follow the terms and conditions of the trust, outlines loan information, and contains a draft repayment schedule. Communities are to follow the instructions on electronically signing the PRA and the financing agreement for each loan. All of the information outlined in this slide can be found under Borrower Resources on the Trust's website. Interim loan closing instructions are also part of the financing agreement package. During construction, loans have 0% interest and no fees. These interim loans make loan funds available during construction and eliminate the need to issue interest-accruing additional fee-bearing bands, which allows the trust to be a one-stop shop for financing your community's infrastructure project. Next, we'll talk about what happens as a project moves towards completion and is put into repayment. When loans are put into repayment status, we call it permanent financing. A frequent question we receive is when will loans be put into repayment? Loans are generally selected for permanent financing when half or more of the loan proceeds have been drawn or the project is expected to be completed within a year. Once this happens, borrowers will be contacted by the trust months ahead of the loan permanent financing. Recent bond deals have occurred in the fall, so generally we reach out to communities in the summer months. At that time, the trust will send verification forms to borrowers, bond counsels, and financial advisors. Verification forms ask similar questions to the loan questionnaire and allow borrowers to make final selections for loan term and amortization. After loan closing, a final repayment schedule is sent to the borrower and posted on the trust's website. When it comes time to repay the loan, payments are due January 15th and July 15th of each year. Due dates will be listed on final repayment schedules, and invoices are sent to borrowers a month in advance of due dates. Disbursements go out after a few steps occur. First, payment requisitions are completed by the community and forwarded to MassDEP once a month with the appropriate supporting documentation, such as receipts, invoices, signed change orders, and so on. From there, MassDEP reviews requests and approves appropriately documented eligible costs, typically within a week. MassDEP then forwards approved requests to the trust, which occurs on a weekly basis. Last, the trust will conduct a final review and wire funds typically within a week. Funds are typically dispersed on Friday afternoons. MassDEP's email for payment requests can be found below. Once a project is 90% complete, MassDEP will initiate project closeout. Prior to receiving the final disbursement, the community should file a project completion certificate with MassDEP. A list of some of our programs with permanent financing and interim financing rates can be found below. The interest rate for loans over 20 years and up to the 30-year maximum is finalized just before permanent financing, but it's safe to plan for it being between 2.4 and 2.9%. As I noted, the maximum term of loans is 30 years. One thing to note is that useful life certificates are required for all clean water projects and any project with a term over 20 years. Your community can expect an administrative fee of 15 basis points and a one-time origination fee of $5 per $1,000 on the principal amount of the loan. In some previous years, the origination fee has been waived, but it's safest to plan for it. Additionally, a loan calculator will be coming to the Trust's website soon, so please be sure to check back for updates. Attached here is a draft debt service schedule, which communities can request at any time. This lists the due dates for debt service and administrative fees. Again, we'll reach out about 1 month in advance of these due dates. This slide is an important piece of information to keep in mind as you move through the SRF financing process. We recommend noting these dates for future reference. One last thing that I want to highlight during this presentation is the School Water Improvement Grant Program. Massachusetts was one of the first states in the nation to offer a school drinking water testing program to sample public schools across the Commonwealth for lead and copper. Correspondingly, the Trust established the SWIG grant program to reduce lead in school drinking water to the lowest levels possible by providing grants to install filtered water bottle filling stations. Please feel free to pass this information along to any school officials you may be in touch with. We have streamlined our application process and hope to have as many schools as possible apply for this grant funding. And finally, our contact information can be found below. Everyone here is available to assist. The primary contacts for the Trust are myself, Kaylin Felmuth, and my colleagues Joshua Deruin and Julian Honey. The primary contact for MassDEP is your Section Chief, with Michelle Higgins as the Section Chief for the Southeastern and Central regions, and Greg Devine as the Section Chief for the Northeastern and Western regions. Thank you for watching this presentation on SRF financing. On behalf of both the Trust and MassDEP, we look forward to working with you.